And we are live. Welcome, everybody. My name is Trent, aka TD. I'm joined, as always, by my amazing partner, Sam, aka Sandy. And today we have uh, Wax IO head of product development, Lee Jenkins, with us. Lee, how are you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, yeah,
Thanks for coming
uh,
on.
yeah. Wow, where do we start? Sandy, you go ahead and
Uh,
start off. I'm going to go throw out some pings and make sure everybody knows that we're live.
yeah, I figure we could start sort of digging a bit into your backstory, sort of what I kind of wanted to honestly ask, if you don't mind sharing, like where you grew up or what kind of inspired you as a kid that may have led to what you do now.
Uh, I grew up in Los Angeles. Um, as a kid, I actually was a big wrestling fan. So that's part of what inspired Blockchain Brawlers to be created.
Nice.
Um, I was also a big video gamer. Uh, in the first in the Intellivision era,
Hmm.
and then later the first NES.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and
What were
spent a
some of your
lot
favorite games?
spent a lot of time trying to get myself to just bounce on a turtle for a really long time to get
To get
extra lives.
the glitch where you got the 100 extra guys, right? Is that what you're
Yeah,
referring to? Yeah.
exactly. Like you sandwich that turtle in against the
Mhm.
wall and just bounce forever.
Yeah.
Uh, and then when you make a mistake, you have to go all the way back to the beginning.
Right, right, right.
Very
I
little
remember that.
saved games back then.
Yeah.
So, you lose a life then, you were like on your back, like crying. Um, but yeah, so those were my passions as a kid: video games and wrestling. Uh,
Where did life take you after that in terms of studying and uh, I guess career before getting into wax?
so my career was always a mixture of technology, media, and entertainment. Uh, I had founded a video game company a long time ago, uh, and William, when he was looking to start growing the team at Opskins, we got introduced, and I had the background he was looking for, with the mixture of a business background as well as a video gaming background, and it was a good fit. And I've been working with him ever since.
What motivated you most to join wax? Was it the team or the concept? I feel like both are
Well,
pretty great on the wax side.
so I joined Opskins before Wax existed, um, and so
Cool.
Opskins was really like it was like the dream of in Ready Player One when he goes into the marketplace and he's buying and selling video game goods. That's what Opskins allowed, and uh, so that was really interesting to me. The idea of gamers having an ability to monetize the items that they earned in game, which was really pretty cool. And I think that's what a lot of the current trends in blockchain are all about.
Yes.
But this was, before anyone was doing that on blockchain. We were doing it on Opskins using trade bots and Steam. And whereas Valve had the Steam marketplace allowing you to trade for credit, we had Opskins allowing you to get actual cash. So we had, teenagers all over the world like making $1 million a year playing
Wow.
CSGO. I mean, you had some people that were just earning tremendous amounts of money farming CSGO and selling those items. Um, so it was a really, really cool concept and experience working with Opskins to help build out that just massive ecosystem. But then Valve started messing with us. They started changing the trade rules. They started making all these changes. And we didn't have a really direct line into Valve to talk to them. So, we kind of assumed that a lot of the changes they were making were to try to fight fraud. And, we started to learn that the changes they were making were to try to fight us. And so we realized that what we needed to do was decentralize. And that's where Wax was born. So the idea was moving those high-level concepts and principles that Opskins believed in and taking it to the blockchain. And I think we've done a pretty good job with that.
Agree. That was what motivated me to get into Wax out of all the blockchains, because I never made as much as people did in CSGO, but made a fair bit trading Rocket League items, and would constantly get accounts shut down by Epic Games, because theirs, it was against the terms of service to be trading their items, but there were a bunch of like black market, basically, trading sites where you could still try to get paid for it. Or people would like list them on eBay sometimes, but
Yeah.
that would usually give away your account and then you would pretty instantly get banned. But yeah, it was amazing to find Wax and be able to do that without any repercussions for trading something that I own. Like, it always drove me nuts in Rocket League that I'm technically leasing something that they're telling me in game that I own.
And that's the way it should be.
Agreed.
And so, there was this book series I read about a decade ago called Play to Live. I highly recommend it. It is an amazing book series. And in it, you have similar tropes to what you have in Ready Player One, full immersion VR. But the difference is, this is like, reading it is, you are basically playing an RPG just by reading it, because it is so detailed. So it actually started the genre that they call lit RPG. And what amazed me about this series was the detail they got into about game economy. And this guy who's now living in this VR world, building up his skills and building up his war chest and of loot and money and all of that through gameplay. And I just found it very inspiring. To me, this book series is what the metaverse should ultimately be, like way more than Ready Player One. Like, this book series just nails it. And it's from like a decade ago. I'm actually rereading it now because it's been a long time. And I, now that I'm getting more into metaverse stuff, I wanted to reread it, and I just find it inspiring. It's got a lot of just the way the author approaches game economy is so cool. And it's really the dream of where metaverse should go.
A good number of them too. It looks like there's 7 books.
Yeah.
He just released.
It's crazy to be from 2014.
Yeah.
They released an 8th one.
Yeah, after like a really long time of no books, he came out with an 8th one not too long ago. But yeah, it is just such a cool series, and it kind of launched this lit RPG genre.
Trying to see if there's like a bundle with all 8 of them.
Yeah, I think I found it relatively easily on Amazon Kindle. I didn't want to leave it up there too long because I don't know what the Amazon rules are on doing that. I don't want Twitch getting mad at us, but yeah, I think I have some Audible credits that I can use it up.
Yeah, it's just a really fun read, and it just makes you dream about one day the metaverse actually being to that level, which is where it should go. And I think full immersion VR will be a thing at some point. I don't know how far we are from it. I know, there's increasing breakthroughs in technology on using your brain to control a cursor, right? And things
right.
And that's all steps along the way to eventual full immersion VR, which will be really cool. And I really hope it comes in my lifetime. One of the interesting things also in this book series is, you have lots of elderly people that get to be young again, right? Through full immersion VR. So I hope when I'm old, that is something, I'll be able to accomplish, because it seems like it's pretty cool.
Cool. All right. And yeah, I think the brain implant thing that Elon Musk is working on, right? Neuralink is maybe is it called?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's just it's another step on the way to actually achieving full immersion VR at some point.
Yeah, no doubt. And getting lots of comments about that t-shirt that only you are wearing. I'm not. I love
Yeah.
it.
Got this at the NFT NYC wax booth. We actually have, um, I have a bag that we still need to open on stream at some point and give away merch
Sweet.
from NFT NYC.
Yeah, maybe we
Just
do
haven't
that
found
after
times
tonight,
to send.
today.
Yeah.
Cool.
So to keep the questions rolling, let me see where I was. We're kind of talking about how you got into working with Opskins. Was your initial role at Opskins kind of what it's grown into now, or has it changed throughout your
Yeah,
time there?
it was a very similar role, but now just doing it in a decentralized manner without a a platform overlord deciding what we can and can't do.
Nobody breathing down your neck.
Yeah, I mean, one of the ironic things, right, was we got a lot of traction for Wax through these partnerships with big brands, right?
Yeah.
Except the big brands themselves started to become the new overlords, right? Telling us what we can and can't do, because brands are scared of this stuff, right? They are scared of NFTs in general. And some of them are starting to loosen up now. But man, the battles we fought against these brands just to be able to do what we did, which wasn't really pushing the envelope all that much. But that's why we started the Wax Studios stuff, to create our own IP, just to have freedom.
Sure. Yeah.
No other brand would let us like put their IP in a game, for example. Like they're just so scared about losing control over their IP that
Okay. I was going to ask.
yeah, it just Street Fighter was one where that was actually signed at the same time we signed our Topps deal.
Okay.
But no one saw Street Fighter for a year after that, because it took us a year to just get the very first collection approved. And that was multiple collections completed that were just rejected. Even as we're getting feedback along the way that everything's looking good, you spend a ton of money building a full art collection. And then at the very end, you're like, okay, I'm submitting it. Let's go. Like, actually, we changed our mind. We don't like this approach. Start again. It was just
It'd be frustrating.
so painful. And I know the Street Fighter community, for example, always wanted us to do more, but our hands were tied. So it's just one of the really tough things in working with big brands. I think now, the reason that the two brands still doing the most on Wax are Funko and Hot Wheels, because they're the most forward thinking. Like, they're the ones who actually put real effort into this. Most of the other brands just, said, Wax, you do it all. We'll approve or deny, once you do the work. And we'll take all the money.
Right. Right.
Right. So it's like, so that was like, we made very little money off the brand deals. I know a lot of people think we make a lot of money, but we did those brand deals with one main idea in mind, which is thinking about like a real world shopping mall. The idea was you have like an anchor tenant who's just like a really big store, and then you have all the mom and pops, right? And that anchor tenant attracts an audience that then benefits all those little mom and pops, right? So was our approach to the blockchain. It's like, well, we need to build this audience for Wax. So what better way to do it than bring in all these big brands, which is what we did. And based on that, all of the indie devs that have had success on Wax, none of them really ever spent any money on marketing. They just came in and offered their wares to the community. And that was because we built this audience on the back of those big brands. And it worked quite well, right? Because Wax now has the biggest audience of any blockchain. And you just look at DApp Radar at the stats on transactions and users, and Wax is head and shoulders above anyone else. doesn't always translate to price, but that's because too many people in blockchain don't look at the underlying data, including the VCs. They have no idea. They think, Solana must have the biggest audience, and like Solana's audience is tiny compared to Wax. And Solana has signed a lot of devs, but they signed those devs. The best place to go, by the way. So if you go to the menu next to the DAppRadar icon, there's that little grid.
Yeah.
Go to the industry overview. And that's where you really can see it in charts. And then you can just highlight additional blockchains as you start scrolling down to see Wax above everyone else.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I think users per protocol and transactions per protocol is where you'll really see it. But yeah, that one of the most shocking articles I read recently about Solana was this dev who basically faked like 90% of Solana's locked value. This was an article in I think CoinDesk. He basically figured out a way to double, triple, quadruple count the amount in his dApps in order to fake tremendously. Like it was like 6 of the 8 million locked or 8 billion locked value was just fake. And he believes that accounted for Solana's pump. So it's like you have all these things that are unrelated to actual utility and actual traction that seem to drive token price a lot of the time. Whereas on Wax, we have all the utility and all the traction, but it doesn't necessarily translate into token price because so much of token price is blind speculation. That it is what it is, guys. It's like that's this current state of blockchain. We do everything we can. We've built the most used blockchain in the world, but doesn't always translate into token price because you look at the stuff that gets the price a lot of the times. I mean, think about Shibu, right? I mean, and Doge, like they have no purpose, but look at the market cap they've accumulated. And then you look at stuff that has practically no users. Just looking at that industry overview chart, with these massive market caps. Engine's another good example. Like Engine doesn't do anything at this point, and yet look at the market caps. It's just, and I hate to say it, EOS is our partner, but Wax is using the same software.
Right.
But Wax has all the users. So why is EOS worth like so many times more than Wax? Like it should have flipped at some point because all the utility is now on Wax. But the world of crypto does not always make sense.
Right. Yeah. And they raised, I think Mansoor Rabbit makes a good point. They raised quite a bit back in 2017. So yeah, it's a great question.
And
They raised like 4 billion.
Yeah, and Block One just took the money and ran. Like,
and now they're doing the rebrand to Antelope, kind of as a. Is that I couldn't tell from what I was reading, but it seemed like a severance sort of from Block One.
Yes. So and we are one of the funders of that. So Wax is.
It mentioned like partnership, so I didn't know, or some sort of connection with Wax. I was wondering what that was.
A significant amount of the cost of everything going on there because our chain will benefit. But it is crazy that EOS got this massive pump on the announcement.
Right.
Wax gets nothing, right? And this is one of those head scratchers in the world of like, how do people make their decisions in crypto? I don't get it. But all we can keep doing is I think doing what we're doing, which is building utility, building audience, building transactions, and hoping that one day sanity and rationality comes into this space, because right now it's anyone's guess what moves a crypto, because it's not based on like old paradigms, because the old paradigm would be eyeballs, right? If you think back to like Web 1 and Web 2, it's like you had all of these companies losing tremendous amounts of money every year, right? Amazon and companies like that. But they had a lot of eyeballs. So all this value was attributed to them based on the fact that people said, you know what, right now they're not making money, but in the future, those eyeballs are going to pay off. Yet somehow in Web3 is the first time where everyone just ignores the data. Everyone's just in fairyland, and they're like, you know, what matters is price, not whatever's causing the price, right? So if a token has a high price, people just assume the devs are doing something right. And if a token has a low price, people assume the devs are doing something wrong. But no one's looking at any data, so it's just a blind assumption. But if you actually look at the underlying data, you're like, why is this blockchain worth so much and this blockchain is worth so little? The data doesn't support that idea. Because in the past, you would look at eyeballs and you'd look at, you know, on-chain transactions, or you'd look at some metric to try to come to some rational conclusion about value, but that simply still does not exist in our space.
I'd argue that's a consequence of retail investment, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, there is the meme stock thing, and that's probably part of it.
Yeah, because it kind of happened in the stock market before even happening in crypto.
Yeah. But you still
like
hope
things just became wildly valued.
Rationality should prevail at some point. It's like, you know, there's a lot of head scratchers in the world, right? You have bankrupt companies or companies that no longer have teams that are in the top 100 tokens by market cap, right? And you're like, why? But that's the world of crypto, and so it can make your brain hurt when you think about it long enough on, you know, asking why. But, you know, I feel like in my heart that at some point there has to be an ability to connect the dots to answer the why, but that doesn't exist yet. But one day, that's all hope.
Yeah.
Because it is hard. You know, it's very hard on our team and hard on lots of teams, I'm sure, in crypto, where when you feel like all your hard work is disconnected from how people value it.
On that note of like how wild the space is there any advice you would give to somebody looking to start a career in blockchain, and like how they should try to look at where they may want to work, and sort of how to get started with that?
It is a hard thing. I mean, one of the funny things to us as well is thinking about back in 2017. One of the things we were scratching our heads about is how much value accrues to the protocol layer as opposed to the application layer. Because if you look at the internet, the value ultimately accrued to the application layer. Applications being things like Amazon, right? You know, or Facebook. That's an application layer on top of the internet. You don't have, you know, otherwise the biggest company in the world would be called HTML, right? But that didn't happen. But yet in the blockchain space, all the value so far is accrued to the protocol layer, with a few exceptions, like something like an Axie, where you had an application accrue a lot of value. But otherwise, you tend to see the protocol layer capture all the value. And that's never really happened in history, because the protocol layer is underlying infrastructure or middleware, and that doesn't generally capture all the value. It's the application layer that does. But that's another thing in blockchain. It's a head scratcher. It's like, that hasn't happened yet, and maybe it never will again, you know. But we have all these paradigms where it's like, so Wax is going to focus on, we'll put the blockchain out there, which we did, and then we're going to focus on building an application layer on top of it, which is things like the Wax Cloud Wallet and our marketplaces and our dApps and our games, and all that focus we've put on the application layer, which is why our team's philosophy has been, you know, we weren't done when we finished the blockchain, right? It was like, now let's start working on an application layer. And that's exactly what we've done. And Wax Cloud Wallet is kind of like that secret sauce that has really helped build out that ecosystem around Wax. I think next to the Ethereum ecosystem, I believe the Wax ecosystem is probably the most robust. And so, but the value is still not accrued to application layers in a big way yet. But to me, application layers are the most fun and the most exciting. Building a game is very gratifying. And even if market cap doesn't accrue to it necessarily, at least if you build a good game and you attract players, and those players now are buying NFTs and participating in that game's ecosystem, I think there's still real businesses to be built. And the value doesn't always accrue properly to the token. You know, one of the head scratchers, again, the Axie token, right? It's like most people seem to have a consensus that Axie as a game is no longer doing very well. And yet the Axie token still has this tremendous value. So again, these disconnects exist all over the place, but who knows if they will ever correct? Maybe they won't. But, you know.
I think there's some hope there that Axie's going to rebuild.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
the
that may
tokens,
be why it still has all that
there's just
value.
faith sort of holding the token price up.
But, you know, but there's plenty of other tokens related to games that don't hold value, and yet, you know, there's a vibrant player ecosystem around it. But you still can build a business. What I love about Web3 gaming is, you know, the big innovation there is how you've decentralized the game economy, right? So instead of every single game item occurring through an in-app purchase with a developer, the players who now own their own stuff are able to sell their stuff to other players. So everyone participates in the success of that game's economy. And so to me, that's what's most exciting, is the decentralization of the game economy is the major innovation in Web3 gaming. It's not just own your own stuff. It's no longer a many-to-one relationship between the players and the developer. It's now a many-to-many relationship between the players and the players. And that is cool. That is super disruptive. And at some point, people will really start to feel that disruption. I think this is as disruptive as free-to-play was in mobile gaming, moving from just paying 99 cents to buy an app to moving to free-to-play and in-app purchases. Now the next stage is taking those in-app purchases and turning them into marketplaces between players. And that's super disruptive. And I think it's kind of the next phase of where gaming is headed.
I would agree with that.
I think these were some of your questions, TD, but the next question was, in a bear market, what would you say is more important, the marketing or the community engagement?
I think both are still equally important, because you got to engage your community. But I think in the bear market, it's more important than ever to try to grow your community, because your existing community, their pockets aren't as deep during the bear market.
Right.
So you got to kind of, in order to grow the economy that community represents, you have to grow that community. And that's important for all the developers in that community. So one of the major things we as a team have been doing is trying to increase the connection points between the Wax ecosystem and the Ethereum ecosystem. And you'll start to notice more and more stuff around that. You know, we just started talking about the fact that we are going to start adding more touch points between blockchain brawlers in the ETH ecosystem to help onboard more of the ecosystem into this community that is Wax. We just introduced the Wax P token as an ERC20. So you can now transfer your Wax tokens from the Wax blockchain to the ETH blockchain and back. And
so it's actually still Wax P ERC20. It's not the Wax E anymore.
Oh, there is a Wax E and a Wax G still. So the tokenomics of Wax DeFi have not changed, other than you can now get Wax P tokens on the ETH blockchain for your rewards. But there are now 4 major exchanges that have started supporting Wax P as an ERC20. So now on OKX, Gate.io, KuCoin, and Huobi, you can choose to deposit or withdraw your Wax P on either the Wax network or the Ethereum network. I think that is huge.
Yeah.
Because what that means is now wallets on Ethereum can start to support Wax P. Custodians who maybe never supported the Wax token before because they don't support the Wax chain can now start to support Wax P, which opens up Wax P for maybe institutional investors who need a custodian supporting Wax P for them to buy Wax P, right? So it starts opening up these big aspects of the Ethereum ecosystem that were not available to Wax before by now having an ability to move Wax P between blockchains. Then with Wax DeFi, previously, because Wax P didn't exist on the ETH blockchain, what we did was the 2% of fees in Wax P, that is, were converted to ETH and then paid out through the DeFi system. So now, because Wax P exists on Ethereum, we no longer need to take the conversion step of converting Wax P to ETH to distribute. Now Wax P can be distributed directly. So that's the change now in Wax DeFi, is everything else is working the same, except when you claim going forward for new epochs, instead of getting Ethereum, you're going to get ERC20 Wax P. So we're now skipping the conversion step, which frankly is not great for the Wax token, forcing it to be converted to ETH at the end of each epoch.
Right.
Now, if you still want ETH, fine, go to one of those exchanges and convert your Wax P you get in rewards to ETH. But if you're trying to stack Wax, you're now getting it directly through that DeFi. So it is just yet another touch point. And then our games through Wax Studios are now going to start supporting more ETH functionality. We're going to have an NFT bridge between ETH and Wax. So as many touch points as we can create, we're going to create, because that is very good for the Wax ecosystem. It's going to grow the community. It'll get us as part of the conversation. Far too often, the Wax ecosystem is simply just omitted from the conversation. People talk about NFTs and they don't even mention Wax in the conversation when, like, we're one of the main ecosystems for NFTs. So we think our theory, our hypothesis is that adding these touch points to the ETH ecosystem may start to get ETH people to pay attention to the Wax ecosystem as being relevant, because it is relevant. It's actually the most used ecosystem in the world, right? But it gets ignored because it's not relevant to the ETH ecosystem. So this will help.
This site is new, man. I hadn't been here in a few weeks, maybe months.
Yeah, it's been redone.
Dude.
We're redoing
I really
a lot
like the new
stuff.
version.
We're having a new website soon for the Wax ecosystem. We are going to rebrand Wax Studios, not the blockchain. The blockchain is still Wax, but Wax Studios, because we're now going to do more multi-chain stuff to help increase those touch points between Wax and ETH. We feel it makes more sense for us to change the studio's name to something new to help reflect that multi-chain strategy. And so soon we'll be announcing a new name for Wax Studios. And this is something that a lot of people in the community were also asking for. They wanted a greater separation between the studio and the blockchain. So that's exactly what we're doing, taking this multi-chain strategy that helps tie Wax in more closely with ETH and try to grow the community.
Hell yeah.
Snazzy in the chat brought up a point that maybe the other blockchains aren't talking about it as much because it's threatening their own blockchain economies, which would kind of make sense, especially with how much stronger Wax is for NFTs than something like Ethereum.
I mean, it is possible. One of the funny things that we hear often when we've talked to VCs is that many of our rivals badmouth Wax more than anyone else in the meetings. And some VCs are dumb and they just take it at face value. But we've had other VCs that then contact us who are like, we wanted to talk to you because people badmouth you so much that we feel that they must be very threatened by you, which I think is probably more likely the case. But we've had other VCs that just take it at face value. They're like, oh, we heard you have no traction. It's like, well, you heard that from one of our rivals, man.
Right,
Like,
right.
lots
Consider
of
the
traction.
source, right?
Look at the data. But you know, there's a lot of people out there that, like I said at the beginning of this conversation, right? They don't look at the underlying data. They don't even know where to start looking at the underlying data. But I do think there's definitely some truth to that of people feeling a little threatened, but maybe by increasing the touch points between blockchains, we can all be one big happy family, right? And I think that's the goal. You should be able to move your assets back and forth between ETH and Wax. Why not? I think that's adds the utility for these developers, these teams, and this community. And if you want to trade gas free on Wax, you want to take advantage of all these marketplaces on Wax, all these cool games on Wax, you know, but you also want to use OpenSea, why not? You know, so we're increasing those touch points.
For the Wax P on Wax and the Wax P on ETH, how is that transfer going to work? Will we be able to swap our Wax P over to ERC20, or will it only be from the reward?
Live within the Wax Cloud wallet. If you go to Bridge, you can right now transfer your Wax between chains. You do have to pay a gas fee on the ETH side, which is just, you know, that's the ETH blockchain. There's gas fees, but you can transfer right now. You also can go to any of those 4 exchanges I mentioned, and you could withdraw Wax to your ETH, your MetaMask wallet right now, and have Wax P in your MetaMask wallet. You know, this is all functional now and live.
What were the 4 sites that you had mentioned?
So,
just so I can write them down.
4 exchanges are KuCoin, Gate.io, Huobi, and OKX that currently support Wax P on the ERC20 format, and as well as Wax P in its native Wax chain format. You simply, when you're depositing or withdrawing for network, you now can choose Wax network or ETH network.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Do you know if Crypto.com is going to plan to support that? I'm mostly asking because that's the wallet I generally use. But
we're trying to get as many exchanges as possible to support it, and it'll just take time. You know, with time, I hope that Binance will also add the network. I think as we increase the touch points and we increase the ETH ecosystem's use of this token, which the DeFi is a great first step in that direction, by now putting Wax P, ERC20 Wax P in more people's wallets through Wax DeFi, I think that will increase the utility of Wax P on the ETH blockchain, and then more exchanges would start to support it naturally. So we are, definitely going to try to get as many exchanges to support Wax deposits and withdrawals on both networks. It's actually very little work for them to do it, to add another ERC20, especially when they already support the Wax P token. Adding another network is not a lot of work. It's just a matter of them feeling motivated to do it. So hopefully more will do this in the near future. But it is cool, this functionality. And, as more people discover it, I expect it enhances our standing in the world, right? We're no longer in this little corner of the blockchain universe with all these users, but still ignored. It now just starts to integrate us more and more.
Yeah, it looks like it's about $6 or so transfer fee on KuCoin. It's what I use.
Right,
I'm sure
which
that's
is
high.
Just covering their gas fee.
Right. And I would imagine that's coming down soon. So that's awesome that there's that off ramp there. What do you think, Sandy?
I think that's awesome. I would bet most of that $6 is the ETH.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know that would come down, or I guess you're talking about ETH 2.0 will make that come down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely. I'll be honest. When I first got involved with the Wax DeFi, it was on one of the months where there wasn't a payout, and so I just got confused and withdrew it, and then kept using my Wax to play NFT games.
Right.
I wish I had kept it in there.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
But
there's been some good payouts, right? Some months,
I know, like
you
the
know,
month after was like a 50% or something, and I was like,
yeah.
wow, I wish I had just waited.
I mean, things are a little down right now in the bear market, but wow, there were some big months there, like in Q4 last year. I mean, with just massive amounts of ETH paid out. It was pretty incredible.
That's awesome. So next on the question list, I kind of wanted to get into more about the VIRLs, which we kind of touched on with the book you had mentioned. But are there any more that you could talk about now? Partnerships coming up for Wax in the VIRL?
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, we're always looking at it. We're always talking to people. I imagine that over the next year, there'll be a lot more happening in that regard, especially because we own the patents on all of it. So there are
Interesting.
a lot of increasingly large players in the blockchain world and non-blockchain world who are starting to dabble. They're just directly violating the patents and infringing. So the result of that could be deals that eventually
Yeah.
start to bring some of that stuff to the Wax blockchain because the patents are ours.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
you want to keep it on this chain, come put it on this chain too, something like that.
Right. I mean, we started doing this before anyone else. We did this on Opskins before we even moved to the Wax blockchain, where we were doing it with sneakers very successfully. I think we did $100 million in volume of virals on Opskins for sneaker drops. It was huge. And we filed all the patents at that time. So we have some of the earliest priority dates, even earlier than Nike's patents as well. So we kind of own the viral space, and it's just a matter of time before we start enforcing our IP that others are infringing on.
What would you define viral as?
It is as simply a linkage between a digital item and a physical item, where the digital item can be traded separately from the physical item, with that digital item having a claim on the physical item.
Do you think it matters if the claim is indefinite?
Well, it all just depends on the rules in the smart contract around that particular viral, right? And so if you have someone that's able to indefinitely keep custody, the point of the viral is to separate ownership and custody of an item to allow more environmentally friendly, high frequency trading. Because think about something like StockX, right? It's like, I love trading sports cards, right? But, to trade sports cards, they have to be shipped
Right.
a bunch of different places before they get to you. Then if you want to resell, you're shipping everything again, right?
StockX may be one of the ones that's infringing because they have an NFT portion now where you can,
and it
like,
is
they'll store
entirely,
your shoe for you and
it's
turn it into an
entirely
NFT so you can
possible.
swap it.
Yeah. But, but the idea of it makes a ton of sense, right? So when we were doing virals on Opskins, so you have like a rare sneaker, and we found that people traded them like 10 times before it finally got into the hands of someone who redeemed it for the actual sneaker, because a lot of people just like to trade. And, my son is a huge fan of NBA 2K. And he just sits there high frequency trading these like fake basketball cards all day long.
Yeah.
2K, where he doesn't really even own anything. And he's making fake money that you can't take out of the game, right? But my God, like digital native, like little kids, the speed with which he moves through these screens, I can't even like keep track. I mean, his dexterity with that controller and the speed with which he is trading, it looks like a bot. It is so fast. But that's what you could do with virals, but with real stuff, right? Imagine if, like the way he's sitting here flipping through these listings, he identifies underpriced items, he buys them, he immediately relists them, and he's just doing this 1,000 miles an hour, right? And making MT, right? The currency of NBA 2K. Imagine now if he could do that with real items, with the same, everything's the same, except at the end of the day, the money's real and you could actually redeem the physical card. Like that's the holy grail. And that's what viral enables. So then you could actually make that little hobby he has playing that game could actually become a career. Trading real collectibles virtually, but with the money and the collectibles being real at the end of the day. I think that's a really cool future career for people to trade this stuff. And I think that's what viral enables.
Definitely. And I have a few family members who are very into trading sneakers. I've tried to get them into NFTs this way. They like played around with the ones on StockX, but they're the ones that want to like hold the shoe. So they would be the person who's redeeming it.
Yeah.
But even with like Rocket League items that I had mentioned in the past, it would have been awesome to be able to trade those as NFTs. Because there were a number of times where like there were gray skins and there were white skins. The white skins were worth like the most. And people would like, you'd go to put up a trade and at the last minute they'd swap it to a gray one. You wouldn't notice it. And then the trade would go through and you're screwed. But like with an NFT, you'd be able to see the asset ID switching. And yeah, you just couldn't do that with a trade the same way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know what, the VIRL process, I say VIRL and you said viral. I'm like, oh, is that how it's pronounced? I don't know why I never thought of that. It's crazy.
Yeah, virtual plus in real life.
Yeah.
That's the origin of that.
That will cut down on a lot of fraud also, like when you go to any of the Facebook marketplaces and you see somebody selling Yeezys, and that's a whole racket. All of that would be resolved.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I mean, yeah, from an environmental standpoint, you're cutting down on shipping, which would dramatically reduce carbon emissions from e-commerce in general. If more e-commerce was done via viral, think about, even putting aside trading, think about gifting, right? How many gifts get returned? Imagine if the gift was delivered as a viral and you either now as the recipient decide to take receipt or return it virtually.
Right.
I mean, that is a fantastic e-commerce innovation from a carbon neutral standpoint. And then, you then got just the aspects of an ability to increase transparency, decrease fraud, increase verifiability. It is a very cool innovation that I think over time is just going to grow in popularity.
Yeah, without a doubt.
On one of your past interviews, you mentioned a William Quigley quote: "Everything that can be eaten will be, or everything that cannot be eaten will be an NFT, and maybe things that can be eaten too." And just as part of the viral conversation, which now in the chat everybody's saying we need to pronounce it VIRL.
Yeah, I don't know about. I've been saying it too long, VIRL. So I'm sorry.
But do you think like a meal order is something that could become an NFT? I feel like somewhere like a cafeteria, something like that could work to get rid of the line. Like you just walk up and redeem it.
We've always thought pizza delivery is super primed for that, because imagine you're gaming with your friends and like one of your friends just sends you a free pizza, right? Like, or, you're in your college dorm and your parents send you like the viral redeemable for a pizza delivery, right? And then you just go to the Domino's site, you turn in that NFT and that pizza's on its way. Like there's certain things like that could be really cool applications. Flower delivery is another interesting one. Like, you want to send your girlfriend roses, but you send her the viral of the roses, and it turns out she doesn't want the roses. She'd rather get something else. So she turns in the flower viral to get something else, right? There's lots of interesting applications of this stuff, even on perishable goods.
You saying it that way kind of makes me think I should definitely be using virals for all my family gifts, because most of my family members will just throw it in the trash, like right in front of you. If they don't want it, just it's gone.
Yeah.
Brutal, man. Damn.
Yeah, my family can be brutal when it comes to gift giving. But yeah, to have a way to, I guess, redeem it rather than having like store credit or something, which I feel like is how some places still do it. Some places won't even give you credit for returns.
Right. I mean, because then the store may not even need to be involved. Maybe you're just going on a secondary market and you're just selling it to someone else who wants it, right? So who cares what the return policy is if there's other willing buyers of the viral,
right?
Or VIRL.
Awesome.
I had a few more questions. I kind of wanted to ask about Wax's mission to maintain carbon neutrality, and if you want to like expand on how Wax continues to push that forward and what they've done so far.
Yeah. Well, I mean, our choice of proof of stake and the way delegated proof of stake works and the way our whole blockchain is architected, that's the first step, right? So effectively, blockchains are just glorified databases. Again, when you start to think about the protocol layer accruing so much value, a blockchain's a database, effectively, just a different kind of database. It would be like saying, we don't care what you do, like as long as it's on SQL Server. It's like no one would care, right? But by using the delegated proof of stake of the Wax blockchain, it means that when the token stakers and voters vote in the block producers don't have to compete to provide computing power to the network. They just provide the exact amount of computing power necessary to produce a block, which isn't that much. But when you think about a proof of work blockchain, you have thousands of competing miners in an ever escalating war to be the one to mine the block. So they throw tremendous wasteful amounts of computing power and therefore energy at the blockchain to try to win the contest to mine the block. With proof of stake, like on Wax, there's no contest. You're voted in, so now you only need to provide the exact amount of computing power needed, which can be done using very standard, very efficient infrastructure in order to power the blockchain. So that simple piece of the architecture already takes you a tremendous way to carbon neutrality. Then, because the entire blockchain itself uses the same amount of energy as kind of a average e-commerce site, which is not a tremendous amount when you compare that to at least Ethereum in its current form and Bitcoin in its current form, where it uses as much energy as like a lot of small countries because of all that waste. Then you start to layer in our carbon, our NFTs, where you can you burn the NFT and a tree is planted in participation with the National Forest Foundation, right? So we have these carbon impact NFTs that are another way where you're effectively able to offset your carbon usage by buying those NFTs, which are available on our Widney.io website. You then layer in virals, which are decreasing the amount of shipping in the world. And now you're combining all of this to get to the conclusion that Wax is actually a carbon negative blockchain, not just carbon neutral, because not only do we have a very tiny carbon footprint to begin with, we're then taking offsetting measures through our carbon our carbon offset NFTs, as well as virals. And now you're actually getting into the zone of carbon neutrality and then carbon negativity, where we are offsetting far more than we produce.
Excellent answer.
Yeah, that was a great answer. I think this is our last question, and then if you have time, we could get into some audience questions. But who would you say is responsible for resources on the chain? Is it more on the players or is it on the games?
I think it's a little bit of both. A lot of it depends on the game design. And one of the things we've been introducing is kind of at the peak of Farmer's World, during Q4 last year, the chain was under tremendous strain because you had a lot of really big bot farms that were just trying to mine that game for all it was worth. And so one of the complaints from players was, we don't want to stake a big amount up front for resources. We'd rather just pay as you go. So we've actually been introducing that into the Wax Cloud wallet. So you can choose, instead of staking, to just pay a minuscule fee per transaction to pay as you go if you don't want to stake for resources. So that's been one thing to help players that don't want to stake. But I have to say, I feel a little bad for games like Farmer's World when it gets to that point, because when you're starting to be botted to that degree, you're no longer really making much in the way of money, but the bot farms are. And so then to say it's 100% the game developer's responsibility is a bit harsh, because you're making no money, but you're supposed to be spending all the money on resources at that point. So that's where you could argue, oh, well, some of that burden then should go on the players, and certainly the bot farms, right? Then on the other hand, it's like, well, if the developer does have a profitable game and is using infrastructure that affects the entire blockchain, well, then the developer should be responsible for some of those resources as well. So my answer, I guess, is it's a little of both, but I think the best way to deal with this is developers need to think about how they're developing. Some games are developed in a very inefficient manner that use far more resources than they need to. And then there's also sometimes stuff on chain that is more is on chain than needs to be.
Right.
It can still be decentralized while not putting so much stuff on chain.
Right.
Not everything needs to necessarily be on chain for something to be still considered a pretty pure blockchain game. So it's all about design. You can let people own their items on the blockchain, but allow those items to be a key to unlock in-game content, where not every single transaction in the game necessarily needs to be on chain, only the really important ones. So there's a balance that developers need to find to minimize how expensive it is for those games to be used from a resource perspective. And then I think it's kind of about finding the right balance as well between some costs should be on the players and some costs should be on the developers. And I think everyone's trying to figure out that balance still.
So Lee, correct me if I'm wrong, but the cloud wallet whitelisting process starts to address some of this, or at least it puts it out there for like larger projects. Like, hey, if you want to be over here, you need to be, doing these items.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. What we are trying to do, and it's hard. This stuff is a hard balance. We hate the fact that we had to start putting in place a paywall to get a new cloud wallet account, but we were getting overwhelmed by bots and it was harming the network. And we're trying to put in place other stuff so we can remove that paywall. But, all of this stuff is incremental improvement of trying to find the right balance, because there are always going to be bad actors who will try to abuse whatever they can abuse. And their philosophy is, if it can be abused,
Oh yeah.
why not? Right. And so you're always trying to find that balance to prevent abuse, but not harm all the legitimate users. Right. And so we are doing a lot to try to get successful developers to pay their fair share while not harming the startup developers that can't afford it yet. So we really are trying to nurture the ecosystem and try to let new developers come in, where they don't have to pay anything, right? Where they could, with very minimal amounts of resources, can start to develop. But once they get to a certain level of success,
Yes.
they should pay their fair share. It's
Yes.
kind of unfair to the block producers as well, right? When you think about a very successful game could be making millions and millions of dollars, but all the
Right.
infrastructure is being paid for by the block producers. So it's like,
Couldn't
I
agree
make
more.
all the money on the game and someone else pays my infrastructure bill. That's
Right.
not really fair. So it's all about trying to find that balance. And this stuff is new and it's hard. And people, I hope, just understand we have benevolent intentions and we are trying to do the best we can to find that right balance. And it's not always going to be perfect, but we're always striving to be better and to try to
Sure.
find that balance to try to maximize the best results for the developers, the block producers, and the community at large.
Agreed. So we're coming up on the hour mark here. I know that's what we booked for. We do have some audience questions if you're up for running through those.
Yeah, I'm up for taking a few of those.
Okay. TD, do you want to pick some of them out of there?
Yeah, sure. Let me see. Do you think about a DeFi tool to stack wax and earn wax? We had some some questions about what are your thoughts on a DeFi tool? And I believe lending was the other one. I'm not sure if that one's in here, but renting service, I believe, is what Paka had asked about. Do you have any thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
I mean, we're very supportive of people creating those types of services. We have platforms that have been moving more in that direction. You have things like Taco, you have DeFi Box.
Yes.
There's more and more services that I think are starting to add more utility to the blockchain and to the user base. And, we support that innovation. And, there's always risk. Bad actors can pop up. It is difficult. We can't vet everyone. It's an open, permissionless blockchain, right? So we can't stop scams. All we can do is react to them when we come to our attention and try to protect people. But we like the innovation we're seeing in the ecosystem. And I think more and more stuff is moving in that direction.
Excellent. All right, go ahead, Sandy. I'm going to get Crittercraft fired up for our amazing audience. Liam, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or not. It's just a game that we run and give away some prizes to the winners. So we'll just
Yeah, we have giveaway tickets hooked up to a wallet, and when somebody burns or redeems their giveaway ticket, don't just burn it in your wallet. You need to go redeem it on our site. It will airdrop them a random, or they can redeem a random item out of the wallet. Kind of fun. It's a cool. I feel like it was a cool use of like what Wax can do versus that's not something we could ever do on Ethereum. Delivering an NFT and then having them burn it or redeem it, it's too many transactions for.
Right. You know what? Let me read this Alcy one that's kind of like 2 paragraphs, and I'll see if I can get through it pretty quickly. All right. I like the idea of VIRL, and I think there's a huge potential for it, though it seems like some of the newer concepts of VIRL, here, let me put it on the screen, sorry, could be liable in the real world. Like there's a real estate company that started recently that is essentially turning deeds for real estate into NFTs and storing the contract details on there. Then those NFTs go to the new owner if they want to purchase the house, and it's supposed to be a smooth transaction to the new owner. But a lot of states have lawyers involved in real estate transactions. So how do you even separate the increasing legalese between virtual and real world when you're trying to tie them together?
Yeah, well, from our perspective, we're mainly focused on consumer goods, right? So, when you're talking about people starting to do these kinds of crazy like real estate transactions and really big money stuff, like that's some pretty advanced stuff, right? And then that has the potential for significant regulation. You have lots of lawyers involved. That's a very tough nut to crack. It's not one we're going to touch anytime soon. We think this is best served when you're talking about consumer products and stuff that is mass market and that are the things people trade all the time, that is very well served by the viral tech, where separating ownership and custody, like in a pretty ordinary e-commerce transaction, is a really cool innovation. Real estate's already like complex, and it's not something that you can just cut out all the lawyers and cut out the regulators. There's too much money involved. So
Right.
That's one where I don't feel like you can just introduce a new technology and all the complexity just drops away. That's going to be a long time. And, to be honest, we're not even really looking at it because it's just so complex right now. It's not even something we really want to touch. From our perspective, simple consumer products is a great starting point. I think what Hot Wheels and Funko are doing is super innovative and a great use case for viral. And that's the level I think it should be at right now. Especially, there are scams out there. There's lots of problems. I would be super worried about doing transactions that significant,
Right.
Using blockchain right now, until things get more advanced and regulations are more clear, et cetera.
All right. And we got one from Jeff here. Can you talk about why Topps left? I think that was a mistake for them.
Sure. It just, from our understanding, it literally just came down to money. You have blockchains out there that have been writing big checks to try to get people to use their chains. A lot of those chains don't work very well, which I think is why they had to write big checks to get people to come there. And I think this has been very common amongst a lot of the popular layer twos with far bigger market caps than we have, where they just were writing a ton of checks. And I think that's slowed down now. But those guys were just out there writing multi-million-dollar checks to anyone who would agree to come onto their chain. And they tried poaching every one from Wax that they could. I think a lot of those developers went there, and then a lot of them started to come back to Wax because they realized that stuff doesn't work over there. We've heard this from a lot of developers that tried building on some of those layer twos and gave up and came back to Wax. But our understanding, and maybe we're wrong, but our understanding is Topps got paid and they took the money and they went to another chain. And I think, kind of makes sense to us that that's what happened. And it, from our perspective, does not look like it's panned out super well so far. I think they expected the Wax community would just follow, and I don't think the Wax community did. Some people went over there, but I don't think you had any mass exodus from the Wax community. I think, a lot of people looked at it like they were being abandoned. I don't think it was a good look. I think they could have built everything that they wanted. They could have been built on Wax. There was no reason why it needed to go to another chain. I think the other chain just offered a payday and they took it. And I think they didn't realize how hurtful that was to their community and all the people that supported them early. And I think the result has been that other products have taken the lead over theirs. I think it was fairly short-sighted, and I think they They got immediate money at the cost of their business, growing into what could have been a far more robust blockchain sports trading card business if they hadn't kind of abandoned that community.
Hey, all right, Jeff, with our question, winning the dance off too. That's awesome.
It's a good
Yeah,
question.
speaking of competition, I mean, I think that Dapper has the market, like they got it pretty locked it down. They don't have baseball, obviously. Tops, I would think, is one of the larger trading card brands for MLB. Maybe Upper Deck is up there. I don't know. I haven't collected cards in forever, but yeah, there's I don't know who's really going to challenge Dapper, but we can discuss that another time. Which other one do we have here?
So the questions.
Yeah. From Doja, would you say wax pumped in November mostly due to speculation on Farmers World, or was it just timing with the bull market?
I think it was a mix. I think the timing of Farmers World pumping was good timing. So I think that certainly helped because it looked to us like it was creating initially a pretty significant demand for wax to go buy Farmers World items. Then the converse hit where the Farmers World team started dumping tremendous amounts of wax as they got it. I've heard figures of $50 million in wax dumped, by that team in a fairly short period of time. So maybe that one ended up being fairly neutral at the end of the day because you had money in, money out. But at that same time period, you also had a metaverse explosion happening where suddenly Gala and Sandbox and a bunch of other stuff was running up. And, Wax's name started getting mentioned alongside those guys. I think that helped a lot as well.
Yeah.
But then that whole sector started falling again. And so Wax went up with them and Wax went down with them. I think it is sad how so many cryptos move in tandem with each other.
I completely agree with that. That everything's so tied to Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to like that lack of analysis of on-chain data, I think.
Right.
With very little differentiation. Everything just kind of moves together. I know that in the Ripple lawsuit, I think I read that one of the arguments they made was insider trading is impossible because no information they have could ever move the market because the only thing that reliably moves the market is the change in the price of Bitcoin, which I thought was a very funny argument, but also one that kind of rings true. Because nothing is more reliable at moving the market than a move in the price of Bitcoin. But it's something that just can't be helped. We as a team currently feel like we have almost no control whatsoever in the price of the token. It just moves how it moves. And all we can do is the best we can to keep building utility and community and getting the name out there and building touch points with ETH and all these things we're doing to add value. But what will actually correlate to a move in price is still, even to us, anyone's guess, because stuff all just seems to do what it does, and it is often counterintuitive, right? You have things, that sound in the world like they're really bad news, and then tokens go up from them. It is constantly head scratching what has an impact in our space. So our team just kind of tries at this point to just keep our heads down and try to build value and just hope that at some point rationality will prevail and this ecosystem we've built will be valued by the world. And I think that's what our focus is. And we love our community, and we hope our community appreciates this utility we continue to build. Because really that's all we can do. Our focus is in just trying to build things we think our community will like and enjoy. And
I like that attitude
We'll
a
keep
lot.
enjoying that.
Hey, our friend Maple, shout out. All right, there's three questions here that I'm going to try to combine and ask into just one for the sake of brevity, and it's about BP's, OIG, etc. So just really quickly, here's Alcie's here. Then we have Recurrier, and I believe there was one more. Yeah, another Alcie one. So the main point in that I'm seeing across all of them is just providing feedback or getting information about how the BPs and the OIG and all of that works. Like for example, like where do the votes come from? I don't know that I personally know the answer to that. So I guess I could make that part of the first question. And then when it comes to providing community feedback or suggestions, like kind of how like Recurrier has here, he would like to suggest that the voting power we use for 30 guilds rather than only 21, et cetera. Where would be the best place for a community member to start down that path if they wanted to make a suggestion or put forward a something to be heard and voted on or whatever?
So, uh, so a few things to answer those. So first off, with the process. So the OIG, which is voted on by the token holders, right? So if you're staking your WaxP tokens, you can vote those tokens for various proposals. And that's where you get your voting rewards, right? So the OIG is an elected position. The OIG, then, their sole role is providing recommendations. The OIG has no power beyond that, right? So the OIG has a rating system in which they evaluate prospective and current block producer candidates, and they give them a score based on a number of factors. And I believe the OIG publishes details on kind of what the factors are they look at, which is all comes down to a lot of it is community contribution, gives them points in the ranking, transparency, tech stack, have they ever missed producing a block, all those kinds of things, right? And then they come up with a ranking. Token holders can look at that and they can choose to vote with those rankings, or they can choose to vote a different way, right? But that is how block producers are elected. So the OIG does not elect them. The OIG simply makes recommendations and token holders then vote. And the Wax team historically had a large concentration of voting power, but that's been steadily decreasing over the years. So while the Wax team is still a pretty big block of votes, it is no longer the majority. It is now a minority voter. So people's votes matter. And so people can vote for those block producer candidates at any time. And that's also how you earn your voting and staking rewards. Then in terms of proposals, there is a worker proposal system called Wax Labs, where people can submit proposals. Those proposals do get reviewed by the OIG, in determining what to put forth to the community, because there are lots of spam proposals that come through. So in order to try to keep it meaningful, the OIG does act as a filter on proposals. But that is kind of the way it works. But there are not enough really high quality proposals coming through. So I would encourage people to put forth proposals. But generally, the way these proposals work is not simply an idea that says, you guys should do this. It is more, I want to do this and I'm qualified to do this. Would you pay for me to do this? Right? So it is a worker proposal system, not an idea proposal system. because an idea proposal system wouldn't really work, because then someone else needs to do the work, right? But it is a worker proposal system. So if you are a developer on the blockchain and there is something you want to build, you can propose to build it. You can provide a roadmap for you to build that thing, and you can propose how you would be paid for building that thing in milestones. And then the token holders can vote on whether or not they want you to do this and want their tokens to go towards that, right? In order to just submit an idea, the best way is to just get involved in the community, become a voice in the community that people hear and back, and reach out to the team on Twitter and in Discord and try to get your ideas noticed. And that would be the way to get your idea forward, because if it's just an idea, someone else is going to have to build it, and people have resource constraints. Our own team has resource constraints, right? There's a million things we'd love to do, but we have to prioritize because we only have so much time and so many people and so much money. So we have to prioritize. There's a million great ideas that we'd love to work on, but we have to decide what can we work on today versus tomorrow versus the next day. And while the idea may be great, it could be that something is just more critical, right? Where it has to take a time priority. Even sometimes it's not even a better idea. It's just something that's more time critical because we see where it could start to cause a problem for network health, right? So it's something we got to tackle now, even though we wish we were working on something different, more interesting or exciting. It's something that we just have to do now. So that's kind of how ideas can manifest into reality.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead, Danny.
You want to keep going on the topic?
I just wanted to say that I was debating just skipping those questions because it's such a we'd keep you here forever, Lee, because I know that I have more questions, and maybe we can coordinate another stream with Wax where we can just specifically talk about those things and answer those questions. But for now, Sandy, go ahead and move it on to the next one.
Yeah, we had two more. So Mountain Doomy asked, do you think big sales during a bear market help or hurt a project? How do you think it affects the chain as a follow-up if the sale flops?
I don't think a big sale could ever hurt the chain, bear market or bull market. I think big sales are good for attracting attention to the chain. Yeah. And if there's a big sale that's actually a big sale for a reason, like it's going to deliver something cool to the ecosystem, which is what we've been trying to do as a team with Brawlers and Music Mogul and other projects we're working on. That's good for the ecosystem. Brawlers became a top project on the blockchain. I think that's good for the blockchain. It's good for the ecosystem. It's good for the community. It gets more people buying and selling in the marketplaces. It has downstream effects that I think help everyone. So I don't think a big sale is ever really hurtful to the chain at any time. In terms of, what was the second part of your question again?
If the sale further down the road flopping,
a sale flops,
what effect that has?
Well, I guess it depends on whether or not you can recover from that. And what the reason for the flop is. Our last Music Mogul sale didn't go great, right? I think some of that was unfair. I think the community, some of the people, their criticisms, they had a misperception over how this stuff works, right? So we did our first sale, which was, like $300 and something thousand for Music Mogul, which was for the first genre. Meanwhile, we've already laid out well over $1 million in spend on the game and the NFTs. And people are like, it's a money grab for profit. And I'm sitting here looking at our books like at a nearly $1 million loss still. And I'm like, so where's the money grab, guys? It's like we're trying to build something really cool for the blockchain, and you have people that just don't understand that none of this stuff is free, right? We have to pay engineers and developers and artists and all the people that go into this stuff. I mean, building original IP is expensive.
Yeah.
So just the all of the artwork for all of the NFTs in Music Mogul alone across all the music genres, that's close to $250,000 in expense just to make the NFTs themselves. Then you have a game being developed at a cost of, around $1 million or more. So this stuff is not cheap. So the idea that there's a money grab happening, I think, was misguided. Actually, we're spending well in advance of what we're selling in order to try to bring cool content to Wax, especially in a bear market when other teams may not be able to afford to bring cool content to Wax.
Yes.
But so we had a sale. Our second sale didn't go well because I think a misguided perception of money grab arose in the community. So what are we going to do about it? Well, we're not going to give up. We're going to recover from it. So we are going to wait to do additional sales until we're very close to game launch. It seemed that the community was not interested in buying stuff well in advance of game launch. Fine. We'll wait. We'll wait till we're closer to game launch, and then we'll start selling more genres. But it is an innovative, cool game in which, the NFTs were priced at $3 a piece. We did not feel that was an excessive price. One of the criticisms of blockchain brawlers was that we had very high-priced items sold to a smaller group of people. So with Music Mogul, our attempt was to sell lower-priced items to a much larger group of people. And we got backlash. I mean, it's hard to predict how people will take things, right? But, so we're going to wait. We're going to try to structure our next sale differently. And we're going to do it very close to game launch so that people won't have to wait long and people will have a much better idea of how the game works at that time. And this stuff is very high quality. It's very innovative. It's not yet another reskin of Farmer's World, which is what we've seen a lot of out there. It's innovative, cool stuff. And the PvP for brawlers is going to be very innovative, very cool stuff. Having Richard Garfield involved is meaningful. And we've spent a tremendous amount of money on building what we think is a very innovative card game that is graphically cool. You have a full 3D wrestling match playing out based on the card you're playing. It's super disappointing when I see comments in the community. One guy's like, it's just a card game like poker. What a letdown. It's like, it is not just a card game like poker. It is a card battle game in which the cards you own matter. It's got extraordinarily innovative mechanics created by one of the most celebrated card game creators of all time, who created Magic the Gathering. It is a full 3D game in which a wrestling match plays out as you play your card moves. The card game in and of itself, even without this graphical excitement, is just a fun game to play. You would be playing it even without all of that because it is cool. It is well done. It is innovative, and it's exciting.
The way I've thought about like what the game is going to look like is, I don't know if you're a fan of Star Wars, but when they have the chess where like you move the pieces and then they attack each other when they get close to each other, I kind of think of it like that, but with a card game rather than chess. Like it can still be stationary pieces that take single inputs, but would still have like an epic animation part to it.
Yeah, and you're, I think, very close to reality there. And then we're also working on other games in the Brawlerverse that will also be part of it that are not card games, that are different genres of games. So there's a whole lot being worked on there. that we think it's important to keep bringing all of these innovative experiences to the ecosystem. And so not every sale we do will succeed, but the point is to not give up, to listen to community feedback, and to continue delivering. And not all teams can do that because they may hit a financial brick wall. And, some people then call that a rug pull. I think in some cases that's legitimate. In some cases it's unfair. They just hit a financial brick wall, and that's an unfortunate reality of trying to be a startup. We fortunately are blessed in that we have some deeper pockets than others. So when we fail, we can try to get back up again. And that's what we're going to do. And that's what we're doing for Mogul. I think Mogul is a fantastic game that I think our community's really, really going to enjoy. And so when we get closer to launch, when people have more information, we hope that people maybe that didn't want to participate in the second sale will recognize that this is going to be fun and they'll come back in. And I think that people that, don't fully understand what's coming in Brawlers yet, once they start to see it, they'll realize, wow, this is what blockchain gaming should be, and they'll come in. But we as a team, like I said, we're just going to keep building, keep creating experiences we think the community will love, keep trying to push the envelope on Web3 and Web3 gaming. We got a lot of cool stuff we're working on, not just in Brawlers and Music Mogul, but across a lot of other projects as well. And we think people are going to love it. And so that's where we're focused.
And on that note, Lee, and I know you might not be able to say, but the overwhelming sentiment, I think, in the community while you were speaking in the comments was just about when are we going to see the game? I mean, you just described it and that was great. When would you say we can expect the next major update from Brawlers where we're seeing actual gameplay or
so there'll be constant updates of progress. So seeing more videos of stuff.
Cool.
Just Mike does a fantastic example fantastic job of providing those examples along the way. He's super engaged with the community and always loves giving updates. So there'll be plenty of more updates coming. But, we're targeting a game launch in, the next few months. So we're getting close.
You said next few months is what I heard, right?
Within the next few months, yes. So maybe even this quarter, there'll be some stuff released, or maybe it bleeds into the next quarter, but it's imminent. And the same with Music Mogul. We're looking at Music Mogul coming out, during Q4. So we're not talking about a super long time to wait on, all this stuff being playable. It's all imminent.
Excellent. Here's a good question here from Monsu Rabbit. Was it the double letter intended? Blockchain Brawlers Music Mogul. BBMM.
It was not. I hadn't even thought about that.
I haven't caught that either.
It's that is really funny. It reminds me of the superhero double name thing. Peter Parker, Wade Watts.
Yeah.
But I love it. It was our unintentional superhero fandom, I guess.
Yeah. He says racing rookies will be the next one. All right. I'm looking forward to it. All
right.
Well,
cool. I think you've done a great job at helping answer some of the community questions, and definitely for myself, I feel like I see a better overview from Wax's side. And I don't know where I'm trying to go with it, but I think I had some of the same concerns as the community that you helped answer, I guess is where I'm going.
Yeah. And Lee, thank you so much for your time. I know we held you over. I'm sorry, we could probably keep going. Hopefully we just can maybe get a follow-up sometime in the future with you to see how things are going with Brawlers and Music Mogul and all of that. Do you have anything for our audience before we let them go?
No, I just think, I guess I would say bear markets are tough.
Yeah.
Keep the faith. I know these are hard times for everyone, and even harder on some people. Some people have lost their jobs during this tough time. I think Everyone just needs to try to keep the faith, and we will all get through it. And let's just all try to enjoy our time through the bear market. And, if the past is any indication, we'll all still have a bright future ahead of us, right? I mean,
Hell yeah.
the crypto space has emerged from bear markets multiple times now, seems to be cyclical. So let's all hope, we come out of this one again in not too distant future, and we all just have to try to help keep each other up and keep the faith.
Awesome. Say anything for our audience.
Thank you everybody for showing up. Thank you for the great questions for Lee, and thank you, Lee, for all the time you gave us today. And again, I feel like you did a great job hitting the nail on the head with some of those questions, like the music mogul sale. And it's good to hear that Wax listened to that, and they're going to wait until there's more info out and then do the next sale.
Hell yeah.
It's just good to hear that, like, feedback.
Change the economics of the sale as well, to try to be easier on people, since affordability was one of the concerns raised. So we're going to try to structure it a little bit differently. So yeah, we listen to our community as best as we can. We're always trying to improve, and we really appreciate our community and all the feedback they provide.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to kick you over to Burst of Energy. Make sure you say hello from us. You enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.